It's Thursday, December 15th, 2022. I'm in this. Um, this morning, I did a piece where I'm like, if there are multiple narratives going on and they cause a maelstrom, how do I ground myself in my position in the field between this personal surveillance and the public surveillance? And then my real aperture as it goes in the field for which I have an extenuating circumstance, but I don't know who or how. I've been visited by a principal once, did not know just how important that word was that he gave me, um, or he fed me the word to describe himself. And Thomas Jefferson does exist. He has a first name before that, which he also allowed me to know. So I completed that work this morning, knowing that as a teenager, before I even started meeting anyone, um, Lewis at some point said that I had something called an avatar. I didn't know what an avatar was. Again, at the square root of a number, if the square root comes with two sets of hands, um, it gets special treatment. So, with that being said, and square root is something the ISO, it's like a industry standard in the local area, at least for the set of rooms I was in. They taught square roots, part of our mathematics and equations on like a very basic level. Um, so that happened between the X, the Y axis, AXIS, and then this new thing I've seen it on television mentioned as like software programmers use some kind of digital scape to do visual arts where they have like the Z plane in a 360 that they added dimension onto the X and Y axis. Um, but again, I'm not learned or scholared in it. I've only seen it mentioned on TV briefly. Um, so I'm watching, and then they had on something about like almost for me it looked like family portrait, and then I'm like, oh, that really would have been helpful to know. In like the bridge of the nose in a profile, Woodrow Wilson has a really nice family nose. Um, and I'm looking at that, and then I'm listening to things that they said, and I'm like, oh, that's the history that I don't know. Then it mentioned something about the League of Nations, and I'm like, all right, so that was like early 1900s. Fast forward, now we're in late 1900s. Apparently, there was some League of Nations they talk about in black and white, televised. Um, and I'm having problems with what's now on the television and in the movies and in the real field and some of the other stories that they're bringing forward within this League of Nations. It looks more like an invasion, but here we are, taking over equipment that now seems to be compromising my ability to have freedom on a whole nother scale, um, other than just the right to choose and quality of life. its ability to live. I have a whole list of them. Um, so I'm watching now. When I went for a run on my natural path between the two surveillance poles that I use, or that I check into with this weird ability that I have with body motion. Unlike I've checked, other humans don't have this ability. This is a rare whatever this is motion, um, in puppetry or whatever. So as I'm running past, I noticed BP gas station was taken down. Now they call that British Petroleum. Again, I don't follow the SEC um, corporations. I don't read Forbes magazine or Fortune magazine. I don't know the faces of the players that fancy themselves and pay themselves extremely well, while I don't even have a small access to like a fraction of what they're blessing themselves with. So I'm watching, and BP, British Petroleum, there was somebody by the name of Gemstar, Gemstar, who was there doing some deconstruction. I thought that was interesting. Um, I don't know what's going on in the local area, wouldn't even know how to find out. Then there's yesterday afternoon on came now Cape May. I went there. Beautiful old, like, Victorian town is what I call it. Like late 1800s, early 1900s, like when things were just really nice, and charming. And there was two sailors that left from Cape May, and they were going down to North Carolina. Something happened. They got picked up by an oil tanker, is what they refer to it as, OIL. But I don't know if that's in reference to gasoline. Again, I don't know when what the narrative changes. I don't know if that's part of changing hands and chain of command, chain of supply. Um, and then I noticed on that they had some symbol, and then it says TriStar, TRISTAR. And then on the back, it said Hong Kong. And I was just, and that's at U.S. Coast Guard mention from Cape May. And I'm like, oh, I met somebody from the Coast Guard when I was in Cape May. Tiafrio 1975 was there. They drank with him. He got really sloppy and then started screaming and cursing me out. It was a real mess. Um, they were a nice bunch. Um, we just walked the streets of Cape May, just admiring the architecture. Well, I was anyway, with a bunch of strangers. It's just how my life goes. I like Holy Ghost. So there's that. So I noticed this mention on the television, and then it just dawned on me how much it's changed since the televised presidential addresses of the early 1900s, and just how out of control it looks, um, in the late 1900s, early 2000s. And since I don't really get family updates or visits very often, or in some sustained capacity where I can speak quietly, directly, here we are.
There's lots of breaking news right now, and those rescued sailors from New Jersey, you may recall, they drifted.
I mean, I blame this break in between the 60s and now on, I call it the business office and leisure and travel. I really don't know what else to call it. Um, but it's caused some kind of problem, and it's been really hard to find inroads. I mean, even to find or be found by a respectable, if principal is what they go for at the family business office or the family law firm in the United States of America. It would have been really nice to have had like a direction into. Now, I know later on, again, there's outside that knows about the special birthing and things, but again, like it would have really been nice to even been put in a direction of where am I going to meet somebody of high caliber and standard as, for family portrait reasons. Want to keep the family nose and some family features. It's kind of important. I mean, if I don't even put the veil of important, I mean, genealogy and whatever in there.
Powerless on their boat for days. You're looking at some live pictures from Newscopter 7. They are now approaching Staten Island, and they will soon be reunited with their families. We want to get the latest from Shannon Stone. She's in Newscopter 7. Shannon, I'm assuming they are on that ship right there. That's not the ship that they were on before.
That is absolutely correct. Now, I will tell you, we did a once over this ship looking to see if we could see them on the deck, but they are safely tucked away inside somewhere. And normally we don't get too excited when we see a tanker coming into the New York harbor because it happens so frequently. But this particular one is the Silver Muna, and this is the one that picked up those two fishermen and their dog. So let's give you the timeline.
It says here, on the back of the ship, I'm just saying, and then up here. So I see this reference to Star a lot.
On exactly what happened here. The two fishermen, Joe DiTomaso and Kevin Hyde, left Cape May on Sunday, November 27th, headed for Florida. They then checked in with friends on December 3rd as far as Oregon Inlet, North Carolina, and that was.
And that says Coast Guard. The other story said North Carolina. This one says Florida and then mentions North Carolina.
Was the last they were heard from on December 11th.
And this one says U.S. Department of Homeland Security and then United States Coast Guard Training Center, Cape May. Again, the Cape May sweatshirt went missing. I'm pretty sure I was wearing it when it went missing. Because all of a sudden I came to and I was in the sweatshirt that had been stolen at some other time and it was swapped out. I showed up in like a quantum leap kind of a way, and however they're working that level of equipment, I was wearing a Cape May when I left Patchogue. I got in a car, my car, someone else driving it. Was taken to somewhere Sachem to see a friend who wanted to see me. I was pretty sure it was Eric, one of the two Erics that I know. And then when I wound up leaving and getting back in the car in order to go back, I had on a zippered sweatshirt, which was the one that now has all the holes in it, which I call like an aqua, like a seafoam color with that insignia. It looks like a royal insignia on the back, but I don't know from what area. Now, here it says out of this world, and it has this image and it references NASA. So for me, without narrative being created here, without words being add to this other than they reference it as out of this world, which I've done before myself. Like, what do these boxes mean? Like, again, I have no idea what a NASA person would say. I mean, depending on what I need to label the boxes for until my part of a narrative. It's a visual aid tool at this point. Um, but this is what they created it to sound like.
New images of the universe captured.
This is a portion of a narrative, a maelstrom, during a maelstrom of some sort.
By the James Webb Space Telescope. The latest photo reveals thousands of never before seen galaxies that sparkle in the distance. Look at this. It also.
So again, it says James Webb Telescope captures thousands of glowing galaxies. Now, if I break this down, this is the GA and this is the LAX. And then it's the 11 in Roman numerals, and then it's ES for energy signature. Just saying. That's a way of reading it. Might not be the standard, but then again, I've got root work to do at Rutza. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.